Absolutely. So I think it's time for us to begin. Thank you for joining us tonight. And yes, so tonight we are starting kind of like a 4-week course that I called Jewish Music Media Room. Why Media Room? Because we are going to see videos and hear recordings of Sephardic music from all over the world. And so the idea is to learn together, and perhaps some of you have some knowledge already, and that's great to refresh. I have to start by saying that the Sephardic world in general and Sephardic music, it's really fascinating because the diversity of it, and we are going to see that the common beginning, which obviously comes from Spain, spread into like a tree with so many branches, and each one of these cultures acquire musical motifs that are particularly from that area. So one recommendation I have is to have good speakers in the house, because I'm going to be playing good music and you want to enjoy it. And so from now on, I'm going to be sharing my screen with the PowerPoint. And here we go. Let me stop that for a minute, because I know that there is, there you go, share sound. There you go, that I missed that. And with that, I cannot do anything. Great. Can you see the screen well? Excellent. So let's talk about Sephardic music. All right, let's begin by reading this. Sephardi, also spelled Sephardi, plural Sephardim or Sephardim, from Hebrew Sepharad. Sepharad means no other thing than Spain. A member of descendants of the Jews who lived in Spain and Portugal from at least the later centuries of the Roman Empire until their persecution and mass expulsion from those countries in the last decades of the 15th century. So when we talk about Sephardim, we can equally talk about Portugal and Spain. And for those who were able to travel with me to Spain a couple of years ago to see all the Jewish community, we saw how rich that was the life of the Jewish people there, and for how long. Think about the Roman Empire until 15th century. We are talking about 1400 years. It's a lot. In 1492, the Jews were expelled from Spain. They were forced to leave without their belongings, but they carried with them their heritage, their language, and their love of music to their new homes. For centuries, the heartfelt and melodic music of the Sephardic Jews accompanied them all in the nations they settled, from North Africa to the Balkans to Turkey, Greece, Italy, and America, to present day in Israel. So here's the thing. I'm going to spend maybe the next 5 to 10 minutes talking about a little bit about the history of the Sephardic Jews, and then right after that, we'll talk about specifically music. So I'm going to show you a couple of maps that are fascinating to take a look. Let's take a look at this. And, we'll have to learn a little bit of geography for those of us who don't remember the countries, each one of them, but it's great. Now, here, where it says on the top is Sephardic migration, and obviously these kind of, I don't know how to define this color, but there is kind of like orange that it's a little darker, that's the Ottoman Empire. So let's begin. Here we have Spain on the left in green. And all these arrows are the places where the Jewish people left after 1492. So for example, big Jewish communities settled in the northern part of Africa. This area is Morocco. And then we have Tunis, Algeria, and Egypt, and all this area. It's more here. Libya, and all the northern parts of Africa. Now, as you can see, and we talked before, many people went directly, obviously, to Jerusalem, Damascus, Syria. All this is Turkey with Istanbul. And then this is called the Balkans, with the old Yugoslavia used to be, now so many countries there. Salonika was a big center of the Jewish community, Sephardim, Italy. And then interesting enough, huge community of Sephardim in Paris, Amsterdam, London, and here you see an arrow that goes to the Americas. Now, since we are doing Ladino music today, Ladino is very similar to Spanish. So I brought a map that it's in Spanish so we can improve the skills of Spanish. Now, what does it say here? This is very important to take a look and crucial to understand. Here are the amount of Sephardim right now. Right now, if you look at these countries, it tells you the amount of Sephardim that are in each one of them. But take a look at this because this is fascinating. In red, what we can see in red is exactly in 1492 what happened with the Jewish people in Spain. As you can see, they went to Morocco, they went to the northern part of Africa, Lebanon here, Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Romania, all that stuff, Italy. Now, what is Spain and the blue ones? This is fascinating. Why? If we look at the blue ones, it says migrations between these centuries, siglos, which is in Spanish, centuries 17 and 18. And it went to France, London, Amsterdam, and to the Americas. Why is that? So if we are talking about the 17th century, we are talking about 100 to 150 years later than the Inquisition in Spain. And that is because the common term called conversos. Conversos or marranos were the Jews who decided to convert to Catholicism and stayed in Spain. So for 100 years or 150 years, many Jews remain in Spain hidden. They were Catholics on the surface, but they are Jews in the inside. Now, obviously, generations pass, and maybe third, fourth generation after that or more, they say, we want to experience our Jewish life again. We know from our roots that we were Jews once. We want to experience that. So then these are the Jewish people who leave Spain and they settle in the northern part of Europe here, Holland, Netherlands, France, and also the Americas. That's very important because they are two big migrations of the Jewish people. Now, let's talk a little bit about Jewish music. Let's see. There you go. Sephardic music is thought to have originated from the Jewish population living in medieval Spain and Portugal following their expulsion from Spain and Portugal in 1492 to 1496, respectively. The Sephardic Jews spread across North America, North Africa, and the Balkans. Because of the geographic proximity to Morocco to Spain, a large portion of the Sephardic Jews settled in Morocco. Following the expulsion, Sephardic music was significantly adapted to the countries that the Jews settled in. As generation passed, the Jewish population adopted the instruments, modes, and other traditions of their host centuries. So I want to clarify something. All the music that we are going to hear tonight are what we call Sephardic music. They are going to hear all the differences and all the styles. Now, one thing that is for sure is that none of this music was played in Spain. And why is that? Because although some of the texts are ancient and they were written in Spain, the legacy of the music before the expulsion has been lost. And the Jewish people got influenced by the music of the local musicians in each one of these countries, and they created music. Let's continue here. This adaptation caused the emergence of two primary branches of Sephardic music. Eastern Sephardic tradition, practiced in the Balkan countries, Greece and Turkey. Western Sephardic tradition, practiced in Morocco first, Amsterdam, and parts of Italy later, like 100 years later. Because so many centuries have passed since the expulsion, a lot of the original melodies have been lost. This is what I said before. Instead, Sephardic music has adopted the melodies and rhythms of the various countries where the Sephardim settled in. The Greek and Turkish tradition are fairly close, but they are very different from the Moroccan or the Western Sephardic. Sephardic music adapted to each of these locales assimilated North African high-pitch extended ululations, Balkan rhythms, and the famous Arabic makam mode. Let's continue describing a little bit. Now, what's the structure of the Sephardic music? The texts of the Sephardic music are written in an umbrella language referred to as Ladino or Judeo-Spanish. What is Ladino? 15th century Castilian Spanish mixed in with bits of pieces of French, Italian, Portuguese, Greek, Turkish, Arabic, and yes, Hebrew. Very important to notice that Ladino is to Sephardim as Yiddish to the Ashkenazic, and in the case of Morocco, the language is called Haketia. Haketia. The music is typically strophic and the verses are normally strains. Anyways, so things to learn tonight are Ladino is for the Sephardim. For the Moroccan Jews, they don't speak Ladino as a dialect. They speak Haketia, this one that we have here. All right, and then these are similar to what Yiddish could be to Ashkenazi world. I have to say on a personal note that Haketia is a language that I'm very familiar with. We are going to see later that there is a big Moroccan community in Argentina, and it happens to be that my mother-in-law, Lorena's mother, is Moroccan. She's a Moroccan Jew. So I first met Lorena, and then I used to go to her house, and the mother was speaking this strange dialect, and she would have all these sayings that I couldn't understand. Then I learned eventually that that was Haketia, which is a beautiful language. So let's begin with Morocco. The Sephardic music of Morocco developed almost exclusively in Morocco, and as such is stylistically different from the Eastern Sephardic tradition. Following their expulsion from Spain, the Jewish population in Morocco thrived for many centuries, becoming merchants, artisans, and politicians. Morocco retains a reputation as one of the most welcoming countries in the Middle East towards Jews. However, during Vichy French rule in Morocco during World War II, anti-Semitic policies were put in place, and Jews were increasingly marginalized by Arab Moroccans. Discrimination continued after the end of the war and provoked the immigration of the majority of the Moroccan Jewish population to Israel following its creation in 1948. Listen to this. The Jewish population in Morocco measured 238,000. Today is 2,500. Let me show you a little bit. Let's see. In order to do that, I want to share the style of the Moroccan instruments. And let me do that quickly. All right. For some reason, I don't have it here. All right. Anyways, I thought I could open a website, but I cannot. So I apologize for that. So let's go back to sharing the screen. Okay. All right. Good. Now, when we talk about Morocco, we talk about something that not only includes Morocco, and this is the term Maghrebi Jews. Maghrebi Jews, Hebrew Maghrebim, North African Jews. All right. Yehudites von Africa are native Jews who had traditionally lived in the Maghreb region. You can see here in the map, this is the Maghreb region of North America, North Africa. I keep saying North America. Under Arab rule during the Middle Ages, established Jewish communities had existed in North Africa long before the arrival of Sephardic Jews. This is very important to notice. Expelled from Portugal and Spain. Due to proximity, the term Maghrebi Jews, and these are the Maghrebi Jews, Moroccan Jews, Algerian Jews, Tunisian Jews, and Libyan Jews. Often refers to Egyptian Jews as well. The Jews live in multiple communities in North Africa for over 2,000 years. And yes, so this is what we talk. Now, let's listen. I need to do this again. I'm sorry. let's listen again to the melody of the Maghrebian Jews. We are going to begin with Esa Einai. And I want you to pay attention to the instrumentation. Beautiful, really beautiful. So when I listen to this, the few things that come to mind is that the sound is distinctively the sound that you hear in Arab or Muslim countries. All right, that's to begin with. Now they use two instruments that are very common in the Sephardic music. One is like the oud, O-U-D, oud. I don't know how you would pronounce it in English. And it's like kind of like a guitar that has an oval shape. And that's one. And then the kanum with Q, it's a flat 26 string instrument. Those are very distinctive. And then in terms of the singing, most of the time when people sing Sephardic music, they they are usually tenors in terms of the high pitch register. Many times we hear using the voices a little nasal, and that's characteristic of it. All right, so that was really interesting. Now let me show you something that it's very interesting. I want to share these photographs for you. This is the Moroccan Jewish community in Buenos Aires. So you can see here this gorgeous synagogue. This was built in 1892, and this is I had the privilege of doing a couple of weddings here, and it's gorgeous. Now here the picture, fascinating, is Albert Einstein. You can see that in 1925 at the front doors of the Moroccan Jewish community in Buenos Aires. And then on the right, You can see this is a prayer book, ceremonial de oraciones para el día de Kippur. Obviously, for Yom Kippur is a machzor, based on the ritual of the Congregaciones Israelitas de Marruecos, the Jewish congregations, Israeli congregations of Morocco. Fascinating stuff that I wanted to share. Now, I'd like to play for you a beautiful song that also comes from the Moroccan song Estar Creciente. I bring for you the Ladino, or the more than Ladino. This is actually Haketia, and the English translation on the side. I'm singing this song for a recording that we made for the temple for the Passover. This is a Passover song. Moshe salió de Mitzrayim means Moses went out of Egypt, and is the Sephardic equivalent of Betzet Israel mi Mitzrayim. All right, Betzet Israel mi Mitzrayim. This, Moses went and the Jewish people went out of Egypt, telling the story of the Exodus. So I hope you enjoy it. And as many Sephardic songs, this is unaccompanied, basically without any musical instruments.
Moses salió de Misraim, huyendo del rey Paró. Fuese derecho a Midian, encontróse con Yitro. Violes y por azuilla, por la que era temiente a Dios, Mose paseando el ganado que su suegro le entregó. Y al pasando su ganado, al monte de Horeb llegó, asentóse en una piedra, esperando ver a Dios. Oyó una voz que decía, Mose, Mose, mi siervo, descalza de tus zapatos, que en lugar santo estás tú. Vete derecho a Misraim, dile al rey Paró, que te entregue a mi pueblo el hebreo. Y si no te entregara, castigarle quiero yo con 10 plagas que le mande, pa' que sepa quién soy yo. Odula Donai Kitov, Ki leolam chasdo, alabado sea su nombre, porque siempre viene nos dio.
I'd like to play for you something that is very nice. This is a recording. It's as you can see here on the left, it's written in French, and it's concert of Hazanut done in the synagogue of Lausanne in Switzerland. And I want to play for you how the Moroccans sing Torah. Cantillation is Torah. So, for example, we would sing normally after the Shema, we'd sing Ve'ata et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha. That's our cantillation. This is how the Moroccan sounds, and it's very different.
ויאמר עמוני אל אברהם לך לך מארצך וממולדתך ומבית אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך ואעשך לגוי גדול ואברכך ואגדלה שמך ויהיה ברכה ואברך מברכך ומקללך האור ונברכו בך כל משפחות האדמה וילך אברהם כאשר דיבר אליו עמוני וילך איתו לוט ואברהם בן 5 שנים ו70 שנה בצאתו מחרן ויקח אברהם את שרי אשתו ואת לוט בן אחיו ואת כל רכושם אשר רכשו ואת הנפש אשר
All right, so I'll give you an idea with that. Very different from what we do. There is some very minor detail that I want to talk about it. I don't know if you noticed, but he was chanting, the boy, with a thick French accent. No problem with the resh. But then instead of saying Adonai, obviously the Sephardim are Orthodox. There is no Reform, Conservative, or Orthodox in the Sephardic world. It's only Orthodox. So when they are not saying a blessing, a bracha, they cannot say Adonai. So they say Amonai with a mem, Amonai. How do I know that? Because for many years I sang in a synagogue for weddings, in the choir of a synagogue when I was much younger. And we couldn't, in the rehearsals, we couldn't say Adonai. So we had to say Amonai. And it's fascinating. We would say in the Ashkenazic world Adoshem or Hashem. In the Sephardic world, they say Amonai. All right. Now, you probably heard here at Temple Emmanuel many times at the end of Neila services the melody El Nora Lila, and this is a Moroccan melody that I want to share. So I'm going to play maybe 5 or 10 more seconds, but I want you to notice the instrumentation while the choir is singing and the cantor is singing. Obviously, you hear some tambourines there, some djembes, which is the percussion instrument, but then you hear this strings instrument that it sounds kind of like a harp, but it's not. It's actually the two instruments that I mentioned before. All right. Excellent. All right, we are going to move on and we are going to talk about different countries shortly, about so many countries to cover. So this is a fabulous book, and it's Flori Jagoda. Flori Jagoda is still, I mean, she's still alive. She's one of the fabulous musicians from Sarajevo, the old Yugoslavia in the Balkans area. She's the composer of Ocho Candelicas that we hear in Hanukkah many times. We sing in Hanukkah many times. It's fascinating, the story of the Jewish community in Sarajevo, and I want to play this for you.
Hanukkah linda está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah linda está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí. Muchas fiestas vou fazer com alegria e prazer. Muchas fiestas vou fazer com alegria e prazer. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí. Los pastelicos vou comer con almendricas y la miel. Los pastelicos vou comer con almendricas y la miel. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí.
Beautiful song. You can hear the little differences between Spanish, the regular Spanish, and the Ladino. Instead of, in Spanish you would count number 5, it's cinco, and number 6 is seis, and in Ladino it's cintiu and zesh instead of seis. So it's some differences. Now let me just tell you, the community in the Balkans started as early as 1565. All right, so these are obviously these two Jewish communities, this one, the Balkans, and the next one that I'm going to show you, which is the Thessalonica in Greece. They were thriving Jewish communities until, unfortunately, the Holocaust. And those were areas where Jews were killed or sent to concentration camps, and pretty much the congregations, the communities disappear. So let's talk about the Greeks. Now, I'm going to be playing this song called Primavera in Salonika, Spring in Salonika. You can read in the meantime the story about Greece and also the song that I'm putting here. This is fascinating. The song on the left is the actual Ladino. At the bottom we have the translation into English, but then on the right we have Greek. And I'm not that good with Greek, but I promise that it says exactly what it says on the left. All right, so let's hear. Beautiful, beautiful song, as you can hear, and the instrumentation is fascinating. Um, One thing that I haven't mentioned to you, and we have to make a distinction here, we talk about Eastern and Western in terms of the Sephardic world. Now, one thing that gets usually people confused is when we talk about Mizrahi Jews, especially in Israel. Mizrahi Jews are not Sephardic Jews, at least not in the when we divide in categories. Mizrahi Jews are mainly Jews that we are talking from Persia, from Iran, from Yemen, from those countries. And those are not considered Sephardim, at least in the category, as I mentioned before. I'm not going to be covering their music tonight, obviously. Another fascinating world to get in. Now, since we are kind of like in a down mood because of what happened to the Jews of Greece, I want to bring something nice. And this is in Turkey. This beautiful picture is the cover of a CD. It's called Estrellitas de Istanbul, or actually Little Stars of Istanbul in Turkey. And it's a children's choir that was founded by Izet Bana in 2004, 2005, 35 members, and they sing in Ladino, which is the Judeo-Spanish. I want to play two songs for you. They are well-known songs. And while I'm playing, you can enjoy the translation, the sheet music, or if you want to read in Turkish, feel free to do that as well. All right, so you have an idea of this beautiful sound. I want to mention two things. Um, uh, this is one of the things that I do for fun. I mean, it's just me because I'm weird. I collect recordings of Jewish music from all over the world. And every place I go in the world, I try to buy stuff, and I have a big collection. So all the recordings you're hearing are from my own collection. This specifically CD was brought to me by Rita Gan. Rita Gan, our beloved temple member. She went to Turkey and bought it and says, "Oh, definitely, I want to have it. I want a copy." So this is how it came to be. So I love it, and I thank her for this. Now, one thing that I wanna play for you is another song that this is fascinating to see. Now, if we look at the bottom here, take a look at the bottom here. This is the Enkel Eloheinu I introduced in the manual when I came. It's the Ladino. Enke Eloheinu, Enke Adonenu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshienu, something like that, a little variation. This is from an old book, 100 years old at least, and it says that the melody comes from Smyrna. Smyrna is in Turkey, and here we have a little modified version with the kids singing. If you know sheet music, the written here was Enke Eloheinu, and here it's double time. Enke Eloheinu, Enke Adonenu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshienu. So let's listen to this. It's a beautiful recording. Beautiful. It's so nice to hear the kids singing. One episode that happened, and this is the beauty of how uh, Jewish people, in a way, speak the same language no matter where you are. We still have about 3 or 4 families here at Temple Emmanuel that are Turkish, and they grew up in Turkey and they came to Boston and they settled and they are Temple members. So I tutored one of their children for the bar mitzvah a couple of years ago, and the grandfather of the boy lives in Istanbul, and he came to America and he doesn't know one word in English, and I was able to communicate with him all the time in Ladino. We would speak. I don't speak Turkish, and it was fun. It was fun to see that the language barrier became like he became so close to me in that aspect. So it's the beauty. Now, this is what we talked about at the beginning about the early settlements of the Jewish people who left Spain in 1492. We went over Morocco, we went over the Balkans, and we went over Greece and Turkey. And now we are going to move to see what happened in a very different era and in a very different tradition, what happened in Europe in other countries. So let's bring this person. His name is David de Aron de Sola, and let's read. David Aron de Sola was descendant from a distinguished family of Sephardim who emigrated from Spain in 1492 on the expulsion of the Jews from that country by Ferdinand and Isabella. Those were the kings of Spain. The family seems to have settled mainly in Holland, Netherlands, and includes, among others, the preacher Isaac de Sola, Benjamin de Sola, who served as court physicians, and Prince of Orange. 1888, de Sola was called to London to become one of the ministers of the Bevis Mark congregation. That's a very famous synagogue in London. Listen to this. De Sola addresses before the Society for the Cultivation of Hebrew Literature led the Mahmat to appoint him to deliver discourses in the vernacular. And in March 1831, he preached the first sermon in English ever heard within the walls of the Bevis Mark Synagogue, all previous ones being spoken in Spanish or Portuguese. Now, interesting, here we are talking about a different area, geographically speaking. We have this Dutch rabbi who moves to London, and he becomes the rabbi on one of the ministers of the Bevis Mark congregation. He was also a musician, and he wrote this gorgeous Adon Olam that I love it. I'm going to play for you, sung by Cantor Stephen Robbins in London. Now, I want you to notice that you are not going to hear any of the melismatic cadences and sounds of the Sephardic music that we heard before. This sounds completely different, could sound like any song from the Ashkenazic world, and we will talk about it later. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I love it. If you notice, there were no musical instruments there. It was just the voices of the choir that follow the tradition of the Sephardic music at synagogue. All right, let's make that differentiation. Sephardic music that it's not religious are accompanied by instruments. Sephardic music that is sung at temple, no musical instruments at all. And you hear here what I was talking about before, which is we are talking about Amsterdam, we are talking about London. The Sephardic community in those places got highly influenced by the sounds of the music that we call and we know as Western music, obviously classical music, opera, and oratorios that were popular in those days. Um, let's see. I'm going to try again to see if I can play a video here. And bear with me. Bear with me. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. So this is a website that is from the Spanish and Portuguese Jewish congregation in London. You can go to this place and you can hear the choir sing. So I'm going just to play a little bit of one of the songs, Baruch Haba, when we sing at weddings, Baruch Haba. Yes, so that was really beautiful. You can hear a couple of things. Obviously, first is that it's an all-male choir, and no women are not allowed in synagogue to sing. And then the second is that, obviously, again, without musical instruments, and also something that is very characteristic of the Sephardic music at synagogue, it's major keys. A lot of the major keys as opposed to the Ashkenazic world where we're seeing a lot of the minor, solemn, and sadder melodies. Now, this is one of the beautiful buildings I want to focus a little bit. This is the Esnoga Synagogue. It's a Portuguese synagogue in Amsterdam. It's one of the most important legacies of the vibrant Jewish community in Amsterdam. Until the Holocaust, Jews made up more than 10% of the population of Amsterdam. During the 16th and 17th century, many Jews that faced persecution in Spain and Portugal fled to Amsterdam. The religious tolerance that I enjoy in the Dutch Republic was unheard of it in the rest of Europe. Now, this synagogue, it seems to be built in 1671 to 1675. And listen to this. I haven't been here, but many people that I know have been here. They don't have electricity. And during services, 1,000 candles in two enormous brass chandeliers light the synagogue. So it's fascinating. And this synagogue, it's very connected to the Sephardic synagogue, Portuguese Sephardic Spain and Portuguese synagogue in New York City. We are going to talk about that. I want to bring this, and why? This is Curacao. Curacao, it's in the Caribbean, Another gorgeous synagogue, Snoa Synagogue, built in 1651, and it's related to this. Here, look at here. Spanish and Portuguese Jews from the Netherlands and Brazil were early settlers in the Caribbean island, taking on influential roles in local communities. The Jewish community in Curacao was one of them. So one of the interesting things about the synagogue is you can see, I don't know if you can appreciate it in the picture, the floor is sand floor. There is a synagogue also in St. Thomas that you can visit. And interesting because we had in the original map that I show you an arrow showing that the Jewish Sephardim immigrated to America. And there are, they settle in different places, like in the northern part of Brazil, like Recife and in Curacao. And from then they were somewhere else. Now, this is fascinating, and I want to share this with you. Congregation Sherit Israel is the America's first Jewish congregation in New York City. The congregation, often called the Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue, is the oldest Jewish congregation in the United States. It was established in 1654 in New Amsterdam by Jews who arrived from Dutch Brazil, Recife. The story is that there were a lot of Jewish people living in the northern part of Brazil, and those were brought by the Dutch who wanted to come to America, to explore America. Now, the Dutch lost a battle with the Portuguese in Brazil. Obviously, Brazilians speak Portuguese because of that. And with the Portuguese on board and dominating the country, they brought with them the Inquisition. So the Jewish people in Brazil, especially in Recife, had no option but to leave, and they landed in New Amsterdam, that is actually New York. Now, listen to this, which is fascinating. Until 1825, when Jewish immigrants from Germany established a congregation, it was the only Jewish congregation in New York City. So almost what are we talking about? We are talking about almost 170 years where there was only one synagogue in New York, and it was Sephardic. The Orthodox synagogue, which follows the Sephardic liturgy, is located in Central Park West and 70. If you have an opportunity, go and visit the synagogue once the pandemic is over. In the Upper West Side, the congregation has occupied its current neoclassic building since 1897. Obviously, they had different locations before, and you can see in the interior is actually really, really beautiful. Now, there was a great cantor there, Abraham Lopez Cardoso. He was the cantor of the New York City Spanish and Portuguese synagogue. He was born in Netherlands, and he was the great-grandson of the chief rabbi of the Jewish community in Amsterdam. In 1939, he was appointed by Queen Wilhelmina to the rabbi of Sephardic community in Suriname, and then in 1946, he came to America. There are a few books of Sephardic music with notated sheet music. This is one of them that here you can see on the right, Sephardic Song of Praise. This is an article in the New York Times, an obituary of him when he passed away in 2006, and he was kind of like an institution in New York City and for that congregation. Now, I want to bring to you a couple of his recordings. These are recordings, a series of recordings that were made by the congregation in honor of their 350th anniversary. And the Amidah for Tal, okay? The Amidah is the one we recite in Pesach, all right? And listen how different it sounds.
Adonai Sifatai Tivtah Uvi Yagid Tehiratecha Baruch Atah Adonai Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo Eloheinu Elohei Abotenu Elohei
You get an idea, very different from what we do. And I want to also play for you Eicha, recited on Tisha B'Av. Let's see how they chant this. We already heard from the Moroccan Jews that the cantillation system was very different. Let's hear from the Spanish and Portuguese in New York.
The Fast of Ab, chanting from the Lamentations of Jeremiah. Hayas Rabadad, Haya Rabatiam, Hayata Kealmana, Rabati Bahagoim, Sarati Bamadinot, Hayata Lamas. Samuki nenahani en menahemli koloyebai samurayati.
You can hear that although it's different, it's not that different. It's in a minor key in this somber style, sad style that we chant in Tisha B'Av. Let me play for you a little bit of the Western Sephardic liturgical tradition. Again, this Cantor Lopez Cardoso. And, the liturgy of the Jewish Portuguese synagogue, Spanish and Portuguese in Amsterdam and the one in New York are very similar. As I mentioned to you, they are kind of like sister synagogues. And let me play this Lechadi.
לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד.
Now, on Pesach, or in every Shabbat, depending on the congregation, we sing the Shirat Hayam, crossing the Red Sea, the song of the sea, and there are the same melody in Amsterdam and New York. Let's hear a little bit of the differences between one and the other.
אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני ויאמרו לאמור השירה לאדוני כי גאו גאה סוס ורוכבו רמה בים גוזי וזמרתיה ויהי לי לשונה זה אלי וענווהו אלוהי אבי וארוממנו.
Beautiful. And now let's hear the same prayer in New York.
אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני ויאמרו לאמור השירה לאדוני כי גאו גאה סוס ורוכבו רמה בים.
Very similar, a little bit less melismatic in terms of the little coloraturas going up and down. You may be familiar with this melody because we sing it here, and that is because many of the Sephardic melodies have been got their way into the Ashkenazic world as well. And this is a beautiful Amen Shem Norah. It's a piyut sung in the High Holidays.
Amen, 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 Shem Norah. Amen, amen, amen. אל אדיר נורא ואיום, לעמך תנפית יום, ויברך אתכם היום, ואמרו כל העם, אמן, 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 שם נורא, אמן, אמן, אמן.
There you go. You have an idea of that. Now, when we talk about Sephardic music, we cannot miss this such an important person, Itzhak Levi, born in Turkey and died in Jerusalem. He was a singer, songwriter, musicologist, and composer in Judeo-Spanish. I have many of his books, and they are like ABC for Sephardic music. Um, what is really interesting is about his career. I don't know if you're familiar. He has a daughter, Yasmin Levy, who travels around the world, sort of singing, sort of like what Karle Bach and Neshama did. And it's somebody that it's a reference for any Sephardic musician or anybody who wants to learn Sephardic music. And these are the books that he created. Um, Romanzot from Romanzas, Veshirei Am Sefaradim, Chants Judeo-Spanols. This is actually a book that he wrote, but this is a French version of it. And then this is an Antología de Liturgia Judeo-Español, is four books, fabulous books of the anthology of Sephardic music. A couple of other things that I want to share with you is this Pismonim, Chaim Elisha. It's a book with a choir and Cantor, and this is one that comes from Israel. Zar Shel Shirei Am, Mipi Yehudei Sfarad. And let's listen to a few more songs. Now, you may know one of my wonderful colleagues and my mentor in Argentina. He's a person who is a scholar in Sephardic music, Ramon Tassat, and he recorded these beautiful songs. Now, I want you to pay attention to this in Keloinu Adon Olam, specifically about the instrumentation. It's a great melodies, but we will talk more about this. So first of all, gorgeous, beautiful sound, great voice. I love Ramon. He's a good friend. What is so unusual here is that, oh, I made a typo here. Adona Olam, Dona Mobile. Anyways, so Adon Olam has an organ. Organ. Normally, we associate the organ with, first of all, an instrument from the church. But second, it's an instrument that was introduced by the Reformed Jews specifically in Germany, Austria, and then that was brought to America, different parts of the world, and is usually identified with Western type of music and with the Ashkenazic world. So this is something that I want you to take from this course tonight. We talk about that, how diverse is the Sephardic world when we talk about it. And obviously, the Sephardim, when they spread and they settled in different countries, they took within their music the influences of the music that was popular in their country. So obviously, as we heard before when I was playing the London choir, that the music sounded very Western. And the same is the case here, where the Adon Olam is a gorgeous melody, but the instrumentation, it's a very Western instrumentation. So not all Sephardic music sounds Middle Eastern. That's what you need to find in that. Now let me play this. This is kind of like, this Yaribon didn't pay the ticket to be here with us tonight because Iraq could be considered as Mizrahi music, but I want to play it as a bonus track and show you how beautiful this melody is.
שפרקו דמי לך עוויה יא ריבון עולם ועל מאיה עמדו מלכה מלך מלכיה עמדו מלכה מלך מלכיה.
One thing to notice here is Yaribon Olam ve Almaya is the Hebrew, and they are saying we Almaya, which is one of the phonemas or one of the sounds of the Arabic in the language. Now we don't have time. I want to skip this page. These are popular Sephardic folk songs done in Ladino, but I want to finish with this great Israeli singer named David Deor. David Deor is a fantastic singer. You probably know him. What is so unusual about him is that he can sing in the regular voice, and then he sings like in falsetto, kind of like in the old ancient time the castratis used to be. Now he sings Adonai Selichot, as we saw before. There's a huge Sephardic immigration and influence in Israel, and I want to finish with this, our last song. Then we can do some discussion and talk about if you have any questions. But I want to play this Adonai Selichot. I introduced this Adonai Selichot for the first time in Slichot this past year, and this is so beautiful. Let's enjoy it.
Ya Shema Evyonecha Amchali
Adon
All right. All right. Yes, you're awake. So Yes, so this is about it. So what I wanted to bring with this little class was to show you to be exposed to the entire world of Sephardic music, and to, the main things to learn are, for me, are that the immigration of Sephardic Jews to different countries were in two big waves that we talked before. The ones who settled really early, right after the Inquisition in 1492. We are talking about Morocco, Turkey, um, Greece, and the Balkans, and then and some parts of Italy, which you didn't cover tonight. And then the ones who were hidden for 100, 150 years, and then they moved to Amsterdam, London, and came to America, among many other places. Also, what I want you to take with you is what I said before, is that the Sephardic sound, in terms of specifically about Jewish music, is very diverse. Very diverse. You can hear the typical sounds that we hear in Israel, like we just finished with the typical instrumentation. And then you have the very Western sound that could include choirs and or musical instruments such as organ and different things. And if you have a chance, as I said before, go to New York, go to Curacao, go to Amsterdam, go to London, because these are fabulous places to visit. And I hope you enjoy it. And let's see if anybody has any questions. As long as I'm able to answer them, I'll be happy. So, Caitlin, if you can unmute people, and let's see if somebody wants to share something or ask something. Why don't you, Caitlin, start by unmuting everybody? And then, because, at this point. Very good. Steve, my friend, I see you smiling. You're muted.
You're not muted.
I'm not muted. No.
No, I said Steve Thompson.
I am, this is such a wonderful class. It's, and I can share this with people because you and I have established a wonderful friendship and a collegial friendship. And the first time I met Elias and we started talking, and I said to myself, this is mishpacha, because he and I think so much alike in terms of wherever we go, if we see music or recordings, we always buy them. And I always used to get from my kids, said, Dad, you don't have any more room. I says, well, then I'll have to build one, because this is more important to me. And it is just, this is just a wonderful thing. And I can also say that when I first met Elias, and I actually heard his first album for Rosh Hashanah, and I heard the Al Nora Alila, and I said to myself, son of a gun. I was just starting to learn that because I was going to be singing that for Rosh Hashanah, for Ne'ilah. And I said, this is why great minds think alike, except he's the great mind, and then I just think alike. So anyway.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your kind words. Completely unnecessary, but I appreciate them. A couple of things that your experience with me. You traveled with me to Spain with Johnny and some people. No, sorry, you didn't travel with me to Spain. We traveled almost to Italy. Right. No, but yeah, that was so sad. But anyways, you have experience because you lived in Israel for a while, and you can speak about the highly influenced culture, of the Sephardic. I don't know exactly. Perhaps some of you may know better than me. I don't know what the percentage of the Israeli population comes from the Sephardic and Mizrahi world, and I would say, easily, I don't know if I'm wrong, but half of the country could be related to tracing back to the Sephardic world. So yes, that's
there's also another observation that I made, just that in listening to the London, the Portuguese, or the London Portuguese Sephardic shul there with the choir, in terms of the choral setting and everything, it's very similar to the Italian setting. Right. And it's almost like if you close your eyes and you didn't know, the sound itself was just very similar. So that would be obviously, like you said, that's the Western influence.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. I got to be in Italy with my family a year before, 2 years ago. And there are two big, huge synagogues in Italy, one in Rome and one in Florence. and they are very different. One is Ashkenazic, the other one is Sephardic. Even in the construction, you can see all the synagogues that I show you today in pictures, they all look very dark inside. They are very dark, the style of construction and the finishing on the walls. And then the Roman one, the one that is Ashkenazic, looks more like, synagogues that were built later, and they have the different style. But it's fascinating. You are right, Stephen, what you are saying, that obviously we didn't cover tonight, but the Sephardic Jews settled in parts of the Italy, especially in Florence, and a city near the coast called Livorno, and those were the Jews who came, very early. Then we have the Roman congregation who has been there forever. 2,000 years has been the Jewish community in Rome existed, even before Sephardic or Ashkenazic world existed, because they were taken as slaves by the Romans when they destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. Anyways, so I just want you to know, in general, were you familiar with this type of music and with the stories and the history of this? Is something that it was new to you, or I'm talking about in general? I'm talking about to everybody who is present here.
Totally new to me.
Thank you,
Yeah, I
Jimmy.
would say also new to me. I grew up in this area, Ashkenazi, and Karen actually said to me, "Where do we have Sephardi synagogues here?" And I don't even know.
Yeah, we do. Actually,
Yeah,
2
of
blocks
course.
from
There's one down the street.
Down the street.
If you go Ward Street, Stanley.
Yeah.
If you go
Right
Ward
across
Street,
from Bethel.
right, it doesn't look like a synagogue. It's a house, but it's I don't know the name exactly. It's Sephardic Center. I think it's Sephardic Center of Newton or something like that.
I think I've seen it.
My son just had a bar mitzvah there because one of his classmates, the father is from Venezuela. I didn't mention this, but when the Sephardim were coming to America, as we saw, Brazil was one of the first places. Then they came to North America, to New York, but some of them stay in Brazil and some others went to Venezuela and to Argentina. And the father of this boy is Venezuelan, so they are affiliated with this congregation here in Newton. But obviously what you are saying, Stan, is because...
I think it's called Beit Sasson.
Right.
There you go.
That's what it is. Beit Sasson.
Beit Sasson. Perfect. Thank you. And obviously by, the use of language, the Ladino language and all that type of language that they carried with, it was easier for them to settle in places when they came to America that spoke Spanish, because it's very close to it. So it makes sense for Argentina and Spain. It makes sense for Argentina and Venezuela. It also makes sense for Portuguese Brazilian, which is not that different from Spanish. It's a different language, but they could understand each other.
I always learn a lot at your classes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or observations you want to share with the public?
I was amazed at what the organ at the last couple of selections you played, and it seems like it would be the influence of what, Ashkenazim, because like you said, there were no musical instruments in synagogue.
No, that's a good question. I'm glad you are asking that. It's not the influence of Ashkenazic, okay? Because in some of those places when they settled, there were no Ashkenazic then yet. And it's influenced by the non-Jewish world that was surrounding them. Mostly in those cases could be classical music or opera, or there were so many composers in those days in England writing oratorios. Handel, one of them, and the music, the organ was introduced by the Sephardim trying to copy what they heard in the non-Jewish world.
Merci mucho.
Thank you. Can you say the name again of the children's choir that sings in Ladino from Turkey?
Yeah. It's called Estrellicas de Istanbul. Estrellicas de Istanbul. This actually class has been recorded by Caitlin, and then we are going to post it on the website. So anything you want to see or hear again, you can just go back to the recording and so Judy, you asked for this question. If you Google Sephardic community or Sephardic Jewish community of Istanbul in Turkey, that will lead into to a store always they lead into stores.
Of course.
And you can find the music over there.
Wonderful, thank you.
Excuse me, could you tell us again the name you played the Hanukkah song from Sarajevo?
Yes, her name is Flory, 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 and the last name is Jagoda, Jagoda, Flory Jagoda. A funny story about Flory Jagoda. When I was in my previous congregation, Temple Emeth here in Chestnut Hill, we hired Flory Jagoda to come and do a concert. So she came, and she was doing the concert. And after the second song, I sang the first song with her. Then I went to the audience, and the second song, I got a call from my wife, and she says to me, "I'm in labor, so run to the hospital right now." And that was when my son Mikey was born. So I'll always associate Flory Jagoda with the birth of my son. So I have to apologize to everybody and leave the synagogue. But yes, fabulous story. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We will meet again.
Thank you.
We'll meet again for those who want. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about the Jewish musicians and singers and performers in the classical music. That is from classical music to opera to things that were written with Jewish themes, not necessarily by Jewish composers, but everything related to the Jewish world in the classical and in the Western world. So thank you for joining.